Welcome to Instructional Design for Beginners. You are about to begin a journey into the art and science of designing effective learning experiences. Instructional design is not simply about creating slides, handouts, or videos. It is about crafting purposeful pathways that help learners achieve real and measurable outcomes. It's about crafting pathways that guide learners toward tangible success. Whether you are an educator, trainer, corporate professional, or simply curious about how people learn, this course welcomes you. This course is your entry point into a world of structured and thoughtful design.
At its heart, instructional design is about problem solving. It asks, what do learners need to be able to do? How can we help them get there? And how do we know if they succeeded? This lesson will give you the 5 foundational steps to begin answering those questions with clarity and confidence. As you move through this video, you'll notice how these steps connect together into a logical flow. Each one builds upon the last, creating a structured process that can be applied to nearly any learning context. Think of this as your designer's toolkit. By the end, you won't just know the steps. You'll begin to see yourself as a designer of experiences, not just a deliverer of information. This first lesson is about laying a foundation that you'll use in every future project, whether big or small. So take a breath, get ready to learn, and let's dive into the beginning of your instructional design journey. Before we move into the core material, let's set clear objectives for this lesson. The purpose of objectives is to give you a roadmap, both for this course and for your journey as a new instructional designer. By the end of this video, you will understand the basics of instructional design and why this discipline matters in education, training, and professional development. You will also explore the 5 key steps that form the foundation of your very first training project. These steps are not theoretical. They are practical, actionable, and designed to give you confidence. Another objective is for you to begin seeing yourself as capable of designing effective learning experiences. Even if you are completely new to the field, you'll learn how to identify what learners actually need, define objectives that are clear and measurable, and structure your content in a way that makes sense to your audience. You will also see how to create learning materials that are engaging and supportive rather than distracting. Finally, you'll discover how to implement your design in the real world and measure whether it worked. These goals set the stage for everything else. They help you know where we are headed and how you will benefit from each part of the journey. Think of these objectives as promises. By the end, you will have a framework you can use immediately, along with the confidence to take your first steps as a designer. Before we talk about the 5 steps, it's important to understand what instructional design actually is. Instructional design is the systematic process of creating learning experiences that are efficient, effective, and engaging. Notice the word systematic. This means it's not about guessing or throwing content together. It's about following a structured process that leads to predictable results. At its core, instructional design closes the gap between knowledge and performance. It helps learners not only know something but also apply it in practice. Think of instructional design as engineering for learning. Just as an architect designs a building to be functional, safe, and beautiful, instructional designers craft experiences that are purposeful, practical, and engaging. This process is used everywhere: schools, universities, corporate training, healthcare education, government, and even informal learning like workshops or online tutorials. Instructional design always begins with a question: what do learners need to do differently? From there, the designer works backwards, creating experiences that bridge the gap. The role of instructional design is to transform content into learning. Without it, we risk overwhelming learners with too much information or giving them content that doesn't solve the problem at hand. Instructional design ensures that every part of a course has a purpose and that the learning experience feels connected and meaningful. So what exactly does an instructional designer do? The role is broad and multifaceted, requiring both analytical and creative skills. First, instructional designers act as needs analysts. They investigate problems, ask the right questions, and identify whether training is truly the solution. Next, they step into the role of designer. mapping out learning paths that guide the learner logically from one stage to the next. Instructional designers also become content developers, creating slides, scripts, handouts, or e-learning modules that support the objectives. But their work doesn't stop at design. They also collaborate with facilitators, trainers, and subject matter experts to ensure delivery is smooth and accurate. After implementation, they serve as evaluators, collecting data and analyzing whether the training worked. More than anything, instructional designers are bridges. They connect the goals of organizations with the needs of learners. They translate complex content into experiences that people can understand, remember, and use. This makes the role both strategic and practical. Designers are problem solvers who help people grow while helping organizations achieve results. One of the most important foundations for instructional design is understanding how adults learn. Adults are not just big kids. They bring unique expectations, needs, and preferences into the learning environment. Unlike children, who often learn because they are told to, adults are usually self-directed and motivated by personal or professional goals. They want to know why they are learning something before they invest their time and energy. They also draw heavily on prior life and work experiences, which can enrich discussions, shape perspectives, and sometimes even create resistance if the new information contradicts what they already know. As a designer, you need to respect and integrate those experiences rather than ignoring them. Adult learners also prefer content that is relevant and applicable to real-world problems. If training feels disconnected from their daily responsibilities, they quickly disengage. They are more likely to remember and use what they learn when they can apply it immediately. Another principle of adult learning is that adults often prefer problem-solving and scenario-based approaches over rote memorization. They want to see how knowledge fits into a bigger picture or addresses a practical challenge. Malcolm Knowles popularized the term andragogy to describe these differences, and his framework remains a cornerstone for instructional designers. By applying andragogy, you create learning that feels valuable, respectful, and effective. That means designing activities that allow choice, encourage reflection, and focus on real-world application. It also means acknowledging constraints. Adults may face limited time, competing responsibilities, or mental fatigue. Effective instructional design meets learners where they are, not where we wish they were. Ultimately, the key to adult learning is relevance, respect, and readiness. When you align with these principles, you increase engagement, retention, and overall training success. Instructional designers wear many hats. At times, they act as analysts, digging into the needs of learners and the goals of an organization. Other times, they are creative designers, building activities, storyboards, and flowcharts. They often act as developers, producing digital content, slides, handouts, or e-learning modules. Instructional designers also collaborate with facilitators or trainers to ensure delivery is smooth and effective. Once training is complete, they shift into the role of evaluator, checking to see if the training worked and where improvements can be made. In short, they are problem solvers. Instructional designers connect the dots between what learners need to achieve and the experiences that will help them get there. This bridging role makes instructional design critical in every sector: business, education, healthcare, and beyond. The job is part creative, part analytical, and always learner-centered. Once you know the real learning need, the next step is defining clear and measurable objectives. Objectives are the backbone of instructional design. They provide direction for you as the designer, clarity for learners, and a framework for evaluation. A good objective tells you exactly what the learner will be able to do after the training. Notice the emphasis on action. Instead of vague goals like understand customer service, strong objectives use measurable verbs such as demonstrate active listening or resolve complaints using a three-step process. This shift in wording matters because it shapes how you design, deliver, and measure the training. Clear objectives also help avoid scope creep. When someone suggests adding extra content, you can ask, does this support our objectives? If not, it doesn't belong. Objectives guide you in deciding what to include and what to leave out. They also help learners see what's expected of them and measure their own progress. Writing objectives can feel tricky at first, but using frameworks like SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, makes the process easier. For example, by the end of this training, learners will complete the intake form accurately and within 5 minutes. That statement is clear, measurable, and directly linked to performance. Objectives also set you up for evaluation later, because if you can't measure the outcome, you won't know whether training worked. In short, objectives are your roadmap. Without them, you're wandering without a destination. With them, you have a clear path to success. The third step is structuring lessons and storyboards. Structure is what gives your training flow and coherence. Without it, learners feel lost and content becomes overwhelming. A structured lesson starts with an introduction, builds skills step by step, and ends with a conclusion that reinforces learning. Storyboarding is one of the best tools for creating this flow. A storyboard is simply a map of your course. It could be a detailed document, a slide deck outline, or even sticky notes arranged in sequence. What matters is that it shows how the learning journey unfolds. Using a storyboard allows you to test the flow before you build the full course, saving time and revisions. It also gives you a tool to communicate with stakeholders. They can see the plan and give feedback early in the process. Structuring lessons also involves pacing. Too much content crammed together leads to overload, while too little interaction leads to boredom. You want to balance explanation with practice, ensuring learners have time to absorb and apply new knowledge. Think of it like telling a story. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. Likewise, a good lesson introduces key ideas, develops them with examples and practice, and concludes with reinforcement and next steps. A strong structure also ensures alignment with objectives. Every activity, discussion, or assessment should connect back to what learners need to achieve. Structure turns random information into a meaningful journey. It provides clarity, flow, and coherence, key ingredients for successful learning. The fourth step is creating effective learning materials. This is where your design begins to take shape in tangible form. Materials might include slides, handouts, videos, e-learning modules, or practice worksheets. The key is that your materials must serve the objectives, not distract from them. Beginners often fall into the trap of focusing too much on visuals or technology without ensuring alignment to objectives. Flashy slides or complicated tools won't save a poorly designed lesson. Effective materials are clear, purposeful, and easy to use. For example, if your objective is for learners to practice customer conversations, your materials might include role-play scenarios rather than pages of theory. Good slides are simple with minimal text and visuals that reinforce the message. Worksheets should be practical, allowing learners to apply what they've learned. If you use multimedia, it should enhance learning rather than overwhelm it. Accessibility is another key consideration. Are your materials readable for people with visual impairments? Can learners with different needs access the content equally? Materials should support all learners, not just the majority. Remember, technology is a tool, not the goal. Sometimes the simplest material, like a well-designed checklist, is more effective than the most sophisticated software. By focusing on alignment, clarity, and accessibility, you create materials that support learning and help learners succeed. The fifth step is implementation, bringing your design into the real world. This is where everything comes to life. Implementation can take many forms: a live workshop, an online course, a blended learning experience, or even one-on-one coaching. No matter the format, success depends on delivery that aligns with the design. Implementation is not just about presenting materials. It's about creating an environment where learners feel safe, supported, and motivated. For live training, this means setting expectations, building rapport, and managing time effectively. For online learning, it means ensuring the technology is smooth and intuitive. Learners should not be distracted by technical frustrations. During implementation, you should also pay attention to how learners are responding. Are they engaged? Do they look confused? Are they actively participating? Your ability to adapt in the moment can make a huge difference. This is also where evaluation begins. collect feedback, observe behavior, and monitor progress to see whether objectives are being met. Many new designers fear implementation because it feels like a test of their work, but it's also the most rewarding stage. It's where you see your design help people grow, develop, and succeed. Implementation is not the end. It's part of a cycle. Each time you deliver, you gather insights that improve your future designs. This step transforms ideas into action, making it one of the most exciting parts of instructional design. New instructional designers often fall into predictable traps, and being aware of them helps you avoid costly missteps. The most common mistake is jumping straight into creating slides or e-learning modules without identifying needs. This leads to content that looks polished but doesn't solve the real problem. Another mistake is skipping measurable objectives. Without objectives, there's no roadmap, and both the designer and learners lose focus. Ignoring learners' context is also a major issue. Training design without considering time constraints, cultural differences, or technology limitations will fail to connect. Overloading learners with content is another trap. Beginners often try to include everything, fearing they'll miss something important. Unfortunately, this overwhelms learners and reduces retention. Cluttered visuals or inconsistent formatting can also distract from the message. Neglecting evaluation is another common error. Without feedback, you miss opportunities to improve. Finally, failing to pilot test materials before launch can result in unexpected issues during delivery. Each of these mistakes is avoidable if you follow the 5-step process and keep learners at the center. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. Evaluation is often the most overlooked part of instructional design, but it's absolutely essential. Measuring success ensures your training made a real impact. The first question to ask is whether learners met the objectives. This can be assessed through quizzes, demonstrations, or hands-on practice. But meeting objectives is just the beginning. The more important question is whether learners can apply what they learned back on the job. Application is the real measure of effectiveness. For example, in a safety course, it's not enough for learners to pass a test. They must also demonstrate safe behavior in their work environment. Another measure of success is performance improvement. Did productivity increase? Did errors decrease? Did customer satisfaction rise? These outcomes show the broader impact of your design. Collecting learner feedback also provides valuable insight into engagement and satisfaction. Observations from managers and peers add another perspective. Sometimes success is not immediate. It may take weeks or months for changes to appear, so follow-up evaluation is important. Tools don't need to be complex. Even simple surveys or checklists are effective if aligned with objectives. Ultimately, measuring success closes the loop on the design process, ensuring your work is not just busy work, but creates real change. As you begin your journey in instructional design, one resource stands out for both beginners and experienced designers. Design for How People Learn by Julie Dirksen. This book is not just theory, it's a hands-on guide that translates the science of learning into practical strategies you can use right away. Dirksen explains how people learn, why engagement matters, and how to structure content so learners retain it. She provides actionable tips for designing workshops, e-learning, and blended learning experiences. For example, she demonstrates how to chunk information effectively, use visuals for reinforcement, and create real-world application exercises. Reading this book alongside practicing the steps in this video will give you a strong foundation and confidence. Many instructional designers consider it essential because it bridges the gap between learning theory and practical application. Whether you are creating your first lesson plan or refining existing materials, the guidance in this book will help you design learning experiences that truly work. Let's recap the 5 foundational steps we covered in today's lesson. First, we learned the importance of identifying learning needs. Without this, you risk creating training that doesn't solve the problem. Next, we discussed defining measurable objectives. Objectives are the roadmap. They guide design, delivery, and evaluation. After that, we looked at structuring lessons and storyboards. Structure creates clarity and flow, turning objectives into a meaningful learner journey. Then we explored creating effective materials. Materials should support objectives, not distract from them, and must be clear, simple, and accessible. Finally, we covered implementation, the step where design meets reality and where you gather insights to refine future projects. Together, these steps form a cycle. Identify needs, set objectives, structure, create, and implement. Each step builds on the last, and skipping one weakens the whole design. By following this process, you avoid common beginner mistakes and set yourself up for success. These 5 steps are not just theory. They are practical tools you can start applying today. Your next steps are simple but important. First, apply the 5 steps to a small project. Don't wait for a big assignment. Practice with something manageable, like a short workshop or even a team meeting. Second, read design for how people learn. It will deepen your understanding and provide practical strategies you can use right away. Third, continue this journey by watching the next course, The Psychology of Adult Learning. That lesson will expand on today's foundation by showing you how adult learners think, what motivates them, and how to design with their unique needs in mind. Together, these steps will build your confidence and skill as a designer. Remember, growth comes through practice and reflection. So take what you've learned today and put it into action. The Learning Designer's Playbook is designed as a journey, and you've already taken your first step. Keep going. You are on your way to becoming a confident and effective instructional designer.